Welcome everybody to the Pittsburgh Underground Podcast. This is our Halloween episode. I'm here with Lee.
Hey.
I'm here with Carl.
Hey.
And I'm Toddy. We are going to talk about our favorite movie monsters in any particular genre or medium. It could be TV, comics, games, anything that we can think of here. And we're not going to screw around because we got a lot to go through here. We got a whole lot to go through here.
Lots to talk about.
Lots to talk about. So for this first episode, or part of the episode, we're going to talk about our serial killers to start with. Okay, favorite serial killers. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what the classic de facto standard might be, at least in our eyes here at Pittsburgh Underground. For example, for serial killers, the classic serial killer here for us is really Norman Bates from the 1960s Psycho, which obviously, if you know your history, was inspired by the serial killer Ed Gein, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, based on a novel by Robert Bloch. Anthony Perkins starred in it as Norman, and Janet Leigh was also in this as his victim, Marion Crane. And also was, later on in life, Jamie Lee Curtis's mom.
Horror runs in the family.
Horror runs in the family. And it was innovative. Not only the way that they told the story, but also how they presented it in theaters. They wouldn't allow people, in if they came late, or and they also had signs saying, "Please don't, spoil the ending." First guy to ever coin the term, "Don't tell any spoilers to people," was Alfred Hitchcock. So, anyways, he's sort of our Norman Bates, our classic, serial killer to kind of, he's the benchmark, the watermark, if you want to call him that. For me, as far as my favorite ones, Norman Bates is up there, and actually the most current incarnation of him, which is Freddie Highmore on Bates Motel. I think that's a really, really fun adaptation to see, how he sort of became the crazy that he becomes. Lee, what give us your take on your favorite serial killer?
Mine is probably a little less well known. It was like these pair of little independent movies called Stepfather, and Terry O'Quinn played the character, the stepfather in the first movie, and I don't know who played him in the second movie. It was somebody completely different and thoroughly forgettable because I've never seen him again, but creepy nonetheless. And it's a standard premise, it's a crazed killer, busts out of prison, changes his identity, hooks up with this lady and her family, gets married, and insinuates himself right into the home, wipes them out, and moves on.
Nice.
He's called a family annihilator.
Oh, so he's a Republican.
Yes.
Lovely.
Brilliant.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
and Terry O'Quinn, if you ever seen him, the guy is two things, especially young Terry O'Quinn. He's super smooth, and he looks like he stepped out of a 1930s movie. He's got that.
He wears that mustache.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And he's got Clark Gable mustache.
Yeah, and he has the eyes, the bedroom eyes, from the 30s. It's like, Jesus Christ. He's creepy and fun.
Nice.
At the same time.
What is your favorite serial killer?
Oh, there's all kinds, and you can get into some of the the ones that are more drama-ish, but one of the truly horrific ones is actually from a TV show. It's X-Files, and I don't remember the name of the episode. This was years ago. It was, I think, in the first or third season, and it was a family that essentially inbred itself since the Civil War, but they would occasionally go out and, they'd have to kill people to either get food or supplies or to keep a secret or whatnot. And I don't know if they're necessarily serial killers as well, but they were systematically killing people to sort of hide their identity. I mean, they weren't necessarily doing it for, food or anything like that, but they were just truly horrific because they were these single-minded, kind of grunting things, and they'd get in their car and ramble around in the middle of the night, and they'd sneak into your house and beat you with axe handles until you were dead. It's like, holy shit! And then they'd drive away listening to like these 1950s, radio songs merrily down the road, just with not a second care in the world. And off they drove into the distance one night, and that was the end of the episode. I'm like, oh, they're still out there.
Lovely.
So yeah, that one's always stuck with me. Is these sort of all I know is they were the booger people. That's all I can refer to.
Nice. Lee. Any others?
No, that was it. You know, it's like we grew up in the era of where the serial killers was like these slasher movies.
Well, that was the thing.
Right.
You know, it really started back in '74 with Leatherface,
Right,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I wrote
you know,
him down there.
Tobe Hooper. Is it
Yeah.
Tobe?
Toby.
Toby Hooper. You know, I love Toby Hooper. He's directed more of my favorite horror movies than most.
And truly
he seems to be like
horrific.
he's
They are
like
scary.
constantly showing up in things I like. You know, and that was, you know, back in '74, that was huge. I mean, that was another one of those tales that a lot like Psycho was inspired by Ed Gein.
Right.
You know, and it was banned in several countries and made a buttload of money. It was an indie movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And you can tell it, but there's a certain. I think that's what lends itself to the horror element of it. It
And
looks
that's Gunnar Hansen.
Yep.
Was Leatherface in that one.
You know,
yeah, but
Hannibal-
it really kind of like that's what kicked everything off. That started it all. I mean, you know, and from there it kind of just spiraled. You know, I mean, after that, you know, it's funny. In '78, and not much after that, there not only did John Carpenter come up with Halloween, which again had Jamie Lee Curtis. You know, another. You know,
You also had Friday the 13th.
you know, Friday the 13th was not. It was like a year or two after that, and that was really in direct, you know, response to the money that the original Halloween made. You know, and you know that was the thing. You know, back then, you know, if you could do a horror movie on the cheap and make some serious dough, they were all about it.
Well, the next step after Friday the 13th was really evolving the character with Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
He was my favorite, and he was definitely like our generation's, you know, monster. You
Right,
know,
that's what
I
we sort
mean,
of essentially
you know,
would
Wes Craven, who recently
Grew up
passed away within the last couple months here. You know, that was his baby. And oddly enough, you know, he appeared in 9 different movies after that, including Jason versus Freddy, which was the first monster team up that we've seen in a really one that mattered anyway in a really long time. I mean, I think as far back as when Wolfman met Frankenstein or whatever.
Yeah, maybe.
And you know that
Abbott and Costello
and Abbott
go
and
to Mars.
Costello, yeah, you know, that's what I mean. It's like, you know, that was the last one. So this was kind of huge for everybody. But you know, again, you know, and actually that was another little weird piece of truth. That was Johnny Depp's first movie.
Yeah.
That's right.
You
That's
know?
right.
And it was my actually the second movie, Freddy's Revenge in '85, was my first horror movie in a theater. And I was telling them these guys the embarrassing story when me and a buddy of mine went to this shitty little theater in Latrobe. One lousy, you know, screen, not very big. We go in to go see this movie, and they make us call our parents to see if we're old enough to see it.
Wah, wah.
That was the true horror of that night.
Wow.
Horrible. Okay, that was our serial killers. Mad Scientists. The classic de facto standard for us was Jekyll and Hyde from 1931 by... You can pronounce his name, I can't.
Ruben Lillian.
Okay, thank you. Based on the 1886 Lewis Stevenson classic, with Frederick March as Henry Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Anyways, he's the benchmark. From there, we go to what I thought was he was actually one of my favorite mad scientists, is Dr. Moreau from The Island of Dr. Moreau, the 1977 version. Directed by Don Taylor of, believe it or not, Freeport, PA, who also went to Penn State. This one's based on the classic 1896 H.G. Wells novel with Burt Lancaster in the title role. Michael Rourke was in it. Barbara Carrera, Richard Basehart of not Sea Lab.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
No, not 20,000 Leagues.
Boys
Boys to the Bottom of the Sea. He played Sayer to the Law, the guy, you know, the animal guy who would constantly shout at the other animals, "Man, walk on 2 legs, animal, walk on 4," that guy. And Bela Lugosi played it in the first adaptation, The Island of Lost Souls, in 1932. Charles Laughton, that was Dr. Moreau.
He was really good in that role.
Yes. Of course, there's always black marks, including the Marlon Brando Val Kilmer one from '96. And I just heard, actually, that CBS is developing a show with a female Dr. Moreau. The guy who developed Sleepy Hollow, Philip Eiskov, is actually developing that for CBS, and quite frankly, I roll my eyes a little bit at it. It's I don't know. Sounds like it's going to be Dr. Quinn medicine, woman with animal people. I don't know. I just wish I'd stop fucking with the classics. But anyways, from there,
Grizzly Adams.
Yes, please. Dan Haggerty, we need you. Where are you? Only you can save us. Anyways, Lee, Mad Scientist.
The Invisible Man, 1933 film version, directed by James Whale, who also directed Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, starring Claude Rains. I love the concept of, based on a novel by H.G. Wells.
Another H.G. Wells, 1921, actually.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. No, that one. I'm sorry. That wasn't 1921. It might have been 18. Right. Yeah. 1897. Okay.
I love the idea of a man of science just doing his thing, and because of his trying to find the human potentiality. Essentially destroys his mind. He becomes an invisible and soon-to-be crazed killer, driven mad by his own design.
Well, that's the thing. In the book, it was the same thing. He couldn't sleep because he had transparent eyelids, couldn't get REM sleep, and it drove him mad. So there was actual science. Written into this book, yes, into the science fiction book.
I love the idea that he goes on to become an invisible mass murderer.
Yes, exactly.
He's like the first. I don't know. He's not the first literary terrorist, but he's just like the first modern terrorist that I remember in especially in film. I'm sure there were tons of these. I'm not mad, I'm disappointed guys. Throughout 19th century fiction, but
No, I dig it. Carl?
It was my favorite. Again, this is based on a classic. Was Dr. Herbert West from Reanimator.
Jeffrey Combs.
Based on an H.P. Lovecraft novel.
1921.
And you want to talk about just maniacal. I mean, it's almost like, how did this guy become a doctor? He's got the bedside manner of a hyena.
Right. That was back in 1985.
One of his first films.
Stuart Gordon actually directed that.
Oh, it's so low budget.
And absolutely. The scariest fucker in the whole thing was David Gale as Dr. Carl Heel, the headless doctor, the headless raping doctor. Oh my God!
Holding his head, gurgling his
words yes, exactly.
And his goo seeping out of his teeth.
And of course it ended on kind of a sort of a unnerving note with the main heroine dying at the end and being reanimated. It spawned two sequels, Bride of Reanimator in 1989 and Beyond Reanimator in 2003, and Reanimator the Musical by Mark Nutter in 2011, which I think I'd actually like to go see. Anyways, I also had Dr. Horrible, Neil Patrick Harris's played that in Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog in 2008.
It was a lot of fun. That was really.
It was great. It was a sort of a protest in response to the Writers Guild of America strike that was happening around then between 2007 and 2008. Josh, Zach, Jed Wheaton, and Marissa Tancharoen, who was actually in this production as well. She every once in a while, everybody in the show sings, but she's the one little Asian girl that sings. It's like a part of a trio when they're interviewing random street people about either Captain Hammer or Dr. Horrible. It won a People's Choice Award, a Hugo Award, 7 Streamy Awards, Creative Arts Emmy Award. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely have to see it. It's definitely worth your time. My mom liked it. I showed my mom. She thought it was awesome.
Got mom's 2 thumbs up.
Exactly. Got mom. Yeah, it has 2 thumbs up for mom. So.
And by hammer, I mean my penis.
Lovely. Okay. That's pretty much all of our big picks for Mad Scientists, as it were. And now on to Deformed Humans, with our classic being Phantom of the Opera, the 1925 silent movie. Directed by Rupert Gillian and starring Lon Chaney. Carl and I took a look at this. I guess what was it back?
A couple years ago.
It was like last year. Right around this time of year, and Netflix had it on. Silent movie, but it was an awesome movie.
I was blown away. I thought, we'll just check it out. It'll be kind of campy or quirky and ho ha ha ha. And we were enthralled by it. It was so visually stunning, and the music and the acting, yes, it's a silent movie, but the story and him at the end, where he clutches his hand, it's just a
it's that moment where before he even is killed by the crowd, he holds something in his hand,
just to be tried.
Like he has something in his hand, and then he lets it go. There's nothing
and
there.
He laughs.
Nice and dramatic. Yeah, it was beautiful.
It was
very, very cool. Very, very cool.
Of
Lots of versions of it. I actually saw the Andrew Lloyd Webber one when my sister turned 16. We went to New York to see it, and that was the first. I think that was the first night I ever ate sushi. It was a good night all around, and actually, I really did like the production. It was actually really good. Robert Guillaume from Benson fame, he even played the Phantom at one point. So yeah, can't knock that. That was actually a lot of fun. Lee, Deformed Humans.
Frankenstein's Monster.
Frankenstein's Monster, good one.
Which is a nice mishmash of both the Mad Scientist and Deformed Humans.
Absolutely.
I love the whole concept of reanimated pile of limbs and organs. It was just a great creepy monster concept.
What's your favorite version of Frankenstein's Monster from any medium, whatever?
My favorite is the '94 Kenneth Branagh version.
Okay. Carl, what's your favorite?
I would have to say the same thing.
Really, the same one? Really?
I didn't necessarily like Robert De Niro's Frankenstein, but I liked the overall movie itself because it presented it in a most traditional way. The James Whale Bride of Frankenstein, fantastic, but that's more of a Hollywood take on it.
Totally.
Clancy Brown was my favorite, the one from The Bride.
Yeah.
I love Clancy Brown. He just was recently in episodes of The Flash. Also did the voice of Lex Luthor in the animated Justice League.
Yep.
I thought he did one of the best versions.
Kurgan.
He did one of the best.
Kurgan.
He did one of the best versions, I thought. So okay, very good. Also, Carl and you and I are both on the same page on this one. The Fly, both versions, based on the George Langenland 1957 short story that appeared in Playboy magazine. Again, we were saying read the articles, although that's all you have to read now. Yeah, thanks for nothing, Playboy. We'll get into that misery at some point. Yeah, exactly. There was a 1958 version. That was the one where Kurt Newman directed with David Hedison of I want to say Sea Lab, and it's not Sea Lab. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea fame. He played the main character Andre Delembra. Okay. Vincent Price played his brother, and it was interesting because the way that they worked it was all done in flashbacks. His wife, who was played by Patricia Owens, had already killed him in a hydraulic press, busted his head and his hand all up. And Vincent Price was there to try to figure out why it happened. She admits to it, but they just can't figure out why. It sounds like too crazy of an idea or story. And that was the one where they switched heads and hands, remember?
Right,
so there was a little fly and there was a big fly. And the whole, help me, which was used as a tagline and a line in the David Cronenberg, the 1986 one by Jeff Goldblum, who played Seth Brundle. He was the new doctor, along with Gina Davis and John Gertz. He was the guy that got his
John Hurt?
John Gertz. He played Stathis Borans. He was Gina Davis's editor, who gets his arm in his
leg
by Seth Brundle. Very, very messed up. Spawned the sequel. Eric Stoltz as Martin Brundle was in that with Daphne Zanunga. John Gertz returned in that one too as a cameo, which was really good. And it was just as good as the original, actually. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, really, really cool.
For me, the most effective, the fly effects are phenomenal and horrifying.
Well, they're horrifying and grotesque.
They're great, but the one thing out of that first movie that really got me is the simple arm break. In
the wrestling scene?
Yeah.
Well, it's the little things, like when he's typing and he's playing with his teeth, and his teeth start falling out. You're like, wow! And he peels his fingernails back that one time.
That's right.
Those, and they're quiet little horrible scenes, and you're sitting there reeling in your seat, going, "Oh God, stop it!" You know.
It was the total disintegration of a man. That's all that was. It was,
Pure
and it
horror.
was, and it was,
Brilliant.
yeah, pure horror. All right, from there we're gonna move on to werewolves, like lycanthropy, as it's scientifically known. Science. The classic, obviously, being The Wolfman from 1941, directed by George Wagner. Kurt, what is it?
Siodmak?
Siodmak. I don't want to butcher
I don't
it.
think he can say it.
Anyways,
It might be Siodmak.
Siodmak, I
Okay.
think it's a...
well, he was interesting because he left he left Germany in World War II.
Right.
Everything about the Wolfman is pure Hollywood. I mean, the mythology, and he was amazing. I mean, Lon Chaney Jr. played the title character, Lawrence Talbot. Claude Rains, again.
Great Claude Rains.
Great Claude Rains. He was in it. He played his father. Maria Openskaya, who played the gypsy woman.
The role she was born to play.
A human fossil.
That's right. She was excellent. Bela Lugosi was in this, actually, as her son Bella,
Yep,
who was
that's right.
who was the original wolf that turns Lon Chaney into a wolf man. Although what I thought was weird was Bella could actually go full on wolf, and where Lon Chaney could only go part way.
Right.
So awesome. He's awesome. Definitely the de facto standard for us. The Wolfman, the 2010 one by Joe Johnson, director. We loved it. I don't know why there was any grief on this at all. A lot of people bitched and moaned. It was wonderful. It makes no sense at all. Benicio del Toro was in it. He played the hero Talbot. Or Anthony Hopkins played his father. Emily Blunt was in it. Simon Merrills played his brother, who actually his brother in the original story is also killed, and that's one of the reasons why the estranged Lawrence Talbot comes back to England, to the homestead. And Hugo Weaving was in this as Inspector Abilene, and he was amazing in this as well. It pretty much beat per beat did everything it was supposed to do, and it really did pay tribute to the original. They kind of fine-tuned some things to make it a little more interesting too.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous movie.
It was a beautiful movie. Rick Baker, who, if anyone loves horror knows Rick Baker. He is the godfather of makeup effects. Yeah. And he, believe it or not, was also in this. He actually has a cameo. He's the first gypsy man that we see, and he's also the first gypsy man who gets killed. Okay. It was just cool to see him, though. All right. From there, we go to 1981, to one of the very best werewolf movies ever made in the history of werewolf movies. An American Werewolf in London by John Landis. Also director of Thriller, for those of you who miss
Blues Brothers.
Yeah, and Blues Brothers. Exactly. Animal House, that's right.
So John Landis, stop what you're doing and go watch one of his
That's
films.
right. David Nottingham played the main character, David Kessler. Griffin Dunn was in this, who was awesome. Played his buddy who gets killed, comes back sort of zombified, undead, to haunt him.
Comedic.
Very, very funny, but also very, very scary because he keeps disintegrating throughout the entire movie. But brilliant. And this was also Rick Baker. Rick Baker did all the effects. All physical effects. Oddly enough, there were some cameos in this that I missed before, and I didn't realize. Lee will remember this. I don't know if you knew this show. In the 1980s, there was a show called The Young Ones. Yeah. And Rick Mayhall was the second chess player that died. Okay. I don't know if he died. He was just he was called the second chess player. Actually, Rick Mayhall did die in 2014. I know, and I'm like, coincidence? Yeah, coincidence. Yeah, exactly. Frank Oz, aka Yoda and Miss Piggy, and Bert. He was also in this as well, playing Mr. Collins.
That's right.
So. Again, great movie, excellent movie. Definitely another one worth your while. It played on every one of the werewolf tropes, and expanded upon it.
I don't think you're gonna. To my mind, it's hard to find a sequence in a movie that's better than David Naughton on that first night waiting to become a werewolf, and then there's like this slow progression and transformation sequence, and it's done with a minimum of edits.
Oh yeah.
It's a nice long scene.
What was it? Blue Moon playing in the back.
Yeah.
It's a nice long scene, and if it was done today, it would be chopped up and it'd be 100 different shots.
That's right.
It'd be a waste.
Excellent movie. Again, worth your while. Awesome. They even actually, believe it or not, I guess it was within the last year or two. I think it was last year over at Universal Studios. They actually recreated it for their Halloween Horror Nights. I guess they did a maze, all based on American Werewolf in London. It had the slaughtered lamb. That was one of the places you got to go, which was the pub they went to in one of the very first scenes. Really, all the way to the subway station scene where one of his many victims is being chased through the very narrow tunnels. Very, very scary, very, very funny, very, very cool.
Shadows.
Exactly. And of course it did spawn a shit fucking sequel that everyone hated, American Werewolf in Paris, which, despite the story that was okay, it was so PG rated. It just didn't know what it wanted to do. It did have the edge that the original did, but definitely check out the original. Next one on the list is that I had anyway was it was The Howling.
Oh yeah.
Loosely based off the horror novel from 1977 by Gary Brandner. Joe Dante, who I'll tell you what is one again.
Bad movie,
come on. Gremlins, Piranha. He did a lot of the ones I love. A lot of movies I love. Dee Wallace, she's like sort of in the same vein of Jamie Lee Curtis. One of the scream queens that we've all come to know and love. Patrick McNee of the Avengers, the original Avengers. Yep. Steed from the British TV show The Avengers. He was in it. Actually, Christopher Stone, Dee Wallace's husband, was in this. John Carradine was in this. Slim Pickens was in this. Robert Picardo of Star Trek fame was in this.
There's mirroring your scene from American Werewolf in London. There's a transformation scene. Dee Wallace is a reporter. She goes to this.
She goes to a retreat because she at the time she was being stalked by a serial killer.
Right.
And they killed him. I guess wherever the hell it was. I guess it was New York City. She basically was traumatized, has amnesia, goes to this retreat on the advice of her doctor. And turns out at this retreat, it's a haven for werewolves, and it just happens he happens to be one as well. Yeah, right. It's not exactly a spoiler. This movie's been around since '81. Go watch it, man.
there's a scene in the strip club where again he digs this bullet out of his head, and he goes, "I'm here to show you, what I am." And she's a reporter thinking he's going to be some nut or something, and he starts to transform. And again, it's in a dark peep show theater. He's got this hacky lights that are flickering electrically in the background, so you barely see him, but again, it's just horrible. His fingers start to do, his eyes bulge out, his ears pop out. It's slow, it's agonizing, and she's sitting there sort of just in shock horror with this movie going on in the background. It's this guy, he takes his bullet out and with a cops have shot him, and it's horrific. It's this terrible, terrible transformation.
But obviously,
again,
one of the better
so
ones.
Scary and so good. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely worth your while. It's it did spawn 7 shitty sequels. That I can't. It's that. I'll tell you what.
For every good, there's 10 bad.
Oh my gosh! I mean, just as a werewolf could infect everyone in your community, this thing infected celluloid and 7 shitty sequels that should have never happened.
The thing is, they got progressively worse. Howling 2 was
especially for a movie that quite frankly was so good and didn't need to get worse. Yeah,
the last one is unwatchable. It's just so bad.
This is one that's in demand of a reboot and may happen. I could see it happening soon. Now we're going to talk about creatures. Creatures of all kinds.
Yeah, 3 of them right here.
Yes, exactly. Our benchmark here was Creature from the Black Lagoon in '54. Not necessarily because it's a great story, because it's not. It's actually a pretty fucking stupid story. I mean, we got a bunch of people going in the Amazon jungle hunting down the Gill Man. The Gill Man falls in love with one of the expeditionist's fiance, she isn't a medical doctor. She's not there for any particular reason other than to connect with her guy, I guess, and which makes no sense. It's like she's just sort of there.
I'm trying to work.
And then yeah. So of course the creature falls in love with her. The big draw about this was it was in presented in 3D, and I do remember that it did actually have 2 sequels.
I thought Revenge of the Creature.
Well, they were all actually, believe it. Yeah, and Revenge of the Creature was, but this one was too. But it was right around the cusp when they were people sort of. It was one of those fads that was sort of ending.
Yeah.
Remember?
So most people did see it in 2D.
Do you remember in the mid '80s? I think Channel 11 here locally did show Revenge.
They showed, yeah, I remember. And you had to go to Sheets and you had to get your your red and greens 3D glasses, man. I still love those glasses. Yes, that was a blast. I love that. So yeah, and that's another thing. It was one of the first creatures that they were able to film fully underwater. Like that was not a bullshit thing. I mean, that suit actually and the creature itself was, believe it or not, designed. It was designed by a Disney animator, Millicent Patrick, who pretty much deliberately is downplayed by makeup artist Bud Westmore. Yeah, they blew her off for decades and decades, but she really had a big hand in it. But yeah, again, he's sort of the benchmark as creatures that are still. He's still considered a universal monster. He's actually going to be they're going to, with this new Universal Monsters Connected Universe that they're going to be doing.
Right.
That's going to be one of the monsters they're going to do. So. The best version of him that I ever saw was in Monster Squad, and that's Stan Winston. Of course, every one of Stan Winston's Monster Squad characters was phenomenal, but that one really stood out. That one was just fabulous. Creatures, Lee.
I love Godzilla.
He's the greatest.
Yeah, you can't beat him. Giant monster, radioactive fire breath. You can do him any number of ways. I love the original 54 movie. I love both versions of the original 54 movie, the Japanese and the stripped down American version. I love the goofball Godzilla movies. Godzilla versus King Kong. Come on. I really love. Every once in a while they'll take a stab at doing a serious Godzilla movie, the Japanese will. But my favorite Godzilla, the absolute best Godzilla, and I know this is probably going to freak out the diehards, I love this new version.
Absolutely.
The new version's great. Yeah, there's nothing to bitch about there.
No.
Hey, I'll tell you what, and anyone who is bitching about it, I'm going to take the one that Matthew Broderick did and shove it down your throat.
That was the Godzilla movie.
Well, it's like, the physical performance is a real thing, especially with the Japanese performers. It's a real serious thing. But to do a completely CG Godzilla, just so
and still
well.
sort of maintain that rubber, these big giant legs and whatnot.
That was a great monster movie from top to bottom.
Top to bottom.
Yeah.
That was my favorite movie this summer.
Honorable mention goes to Cloverfield.
Oh yeah,
All right.
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
You're still scared. You're only seeing it briefly. It was just the found film style of
That actually worked really well for that.
It
doesn't work for everything, but it worked for that.
No,
yeah.
that was a nice touch on that.
Carl?
I've got one of the first scary movies that I ever saw that really had filled with was Nightbreed, Clive Barker.
Love Nightbreed.
And it was just filled, I wouldn't just call it, but just filled with monsters all over the place. And some of them were
not really like traditional.
No, they were very
made up. I mean, it was very inventive.
And David Cronenberg again with his knife was sort of the biggest monster in the thing. He was just a regular guy, but there were just so many of them. The girl that could turn into mist, the one that that they could throw the spines out of them. One guy was just sort of crazy and probably with scales. They would just love monsters, and it was filled with them. They were the main characters, and this was a chance for them. It's like, now the monsters to do this, so that was good.
Yeah.
And again, a second shout out to, I think, the scariest monster movie I've ever seen. It has to be John Carpenter's The Thing.
Awesome movie. Actually, both of them were awesome.
Both of them were awesome.
The original Thing
from
Garness, but also like you said, the John Carpenter one rocked, and I like the prequel that they did with Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I didn't think
that seriously only made that movie better in my eyes.
Right.
I mean,
it shows
it shows the before what what had happened.
The Swedish team pulling out.
Exactly before Kurt Russell's character gets there.
Right. Which again,
and it was genius. It was genius. And it was so, and the lovely part about that movie was not only did it continue the original story, or not really continue, but add to the original story.
It filled in a few gaps,
I love the effects from both. You know what I mean? It's like the ones from the original are so Ray Harryhausen-like, but the new ones are sort of within that same feel and vein, but with new technology.
And there's
really
a little bit more, I guess, a sense of really making this thing seem alien and monstrous.
That was scary.
It was very scary.
That was really scary.
It's happening in broad daylight. You see it go on. Again, it's based on a story by the guy by the name of John Campbell, who essentially invented Pulp magazine, the John W. Campbell Award. He wrote a little short story called Who Goes There back in the 50s. And it became this, and he was more of an editor, but he did write this one little story way back when. I think it was in the 30s when he wrote it. Little short thing, Who Goes There? And again, it's basically you're trapped in the Antarctic. And what I love about Carpenter's version of it is that it wasn't the scientist anymore, it was sort of the after effect. He did such a brilliant adaptation of sort of shifting the story more into sort of modern terms, but also upping the horror aspect. It was almost a mystery in the first one. Here he turned it into a full-blown horror movie.
Absolutely.
One of the scariest things. That was one of the first movies I sat down and watched it, and immediately turned out and watched it again.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Blew me away.
For me, I even though this isn't necessarily considered pure horror, but it is a horror movie. Joe Dante, yet once again in 1984, with writer Chris Columbus, put together Gremlins, and I still love it. Come on, Phoebe Cates, hottest chick from 1980, whatever, is in it. With Zach Galligan.
From Hermanton.
No, not from Hermanton. This is no. That's someone else, dude. That's
that's Fright Night.
Yeah, that's Fright Night, dude. No, Zach Galligan. He was the guy who played Billy. That's the one thing I remember him in. Hoyt Axton was in it. Corey Feldman. Feldman was in this too, and when he was younger. This is like before
Corey Feldman did a Friday the 13th movie.
I think it's before Goonies, isn't it?
I
think it might be.
Yeah.
84, yeah. Other notable people that were in this was Polly Holliday, who played Mrs. Deagle. She was Flo from Alice. Kiss my grits! Remember that? Key Luke was in this from he was the grandfather in this who had the Mogwai gizmo. He played he was also in Kung Fu for a lot. We were just talking about David Carradine in our last episode. But also, Steven Spielberg and Jerry Goldsmith show up in cameos, which I thought was kind of cool. And of course, would be remiss to not mention Dick Miller, who played Murray Futterman. Dick Miller is in just about every awesome every awesome monster movie or horror movie you've ever seen. He's been around forever. And he was even in the sequel, the new batch that had Christopher Lee and John Glover. The crazy thing about this movie is that 2 weeks after its release, because parents in the 80s were all fucking babies about everything.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah, nothing's really changed. They've only gotten worse. But because they were such babies about everything, basically this movie was the reason why the PG-13 rating now exists. Because that rating came out, like I said, 2 weeks after this movie showed up. Yeah, exactly. And it was supposed to be actually a lot nastier. This movie, the Columbus's original version was supposed to be way darker. He ate Billy. The Gremlins ate Billy's dog. Billy's mom died at the hands of the Gremlins. They were seen eating customers at McDonald's. Stripe, the main villain, didn't exist. Actually, it was supposed to be Gizmo who turned into Stripe, which I thought was kind of interesting. Frank Welker was the voice of Stripe, and he's known as we know him, we've seen him or heard him and everything. He played Fred Jones and Scooby-Doo since his inception, Dr. Claw and Inspector Gadget. He's been doing voices forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and of course everyone knows Howie Mandel was Gizmo. You know what? These were awesome, scary, scary and funny at the same time, and they are rebooting it. This is actually going to be, I really hope they don't bone it up, like so many other reboots we've seen.
Well, I hope they don't cute them up and make them for kids.
That's right.
So that there's toys to sell or something.
My honorable mention was Slither.
Nice, good call.
From 2006, James Gunn, director. He was also director of Guardians of the Galaxy. This was a scary, awesome, funny movie. Nathan Fillion played the sheriff. Elizabeth Banks was in it. She played the local hottie who was married to Michael Rooker, whose name was Grant Grant. She was Starla Grant, and he was Grant Grant. And it's an alien story. It's about a small town taken over by an alien plague, where these little, I don't know, they're almost like slug-like creatures invade their brains and turn them into zombies and monsters. It is a fabulous creature movie. Really, really fun. Michael Rooker just gets scarier every time you see him. Actually, all the monsters in this are really kind of frightening and cringeworthy. But again, a lot like American Werewolf in London, it does it with comedy. A lot of fun. Definitely another one worth your watch.
Everything beautiful.
All right, that's the end of this section of this episode. We're doing these in a couple different parts right now because it is Halloween, and we have a lot to say about Halloween and our likes of Halloween. So thanks, Lee.
Both hands on the keyboard.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks a lot.
And I'm Toddy, and don't forget to visit us at www.puzine.com, and also don't forget, follow us on Facebook and Twitter and all those other good things. Check out our YouTube channel. Like us, please. And we will see you for the next half of this Halloween episode of the PU Podcast. See you soon. PU.